Hello everybody and welcome to another Pixel for Life video tutorial. So recently I decided it was about time that I refresh my personal portfolio and thought this is the perfect time to learn CSS3 or at least do some messing around with it. And I am happy that I did. There's some pretty sweet stuff that you can do with it. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing I would probably have done with jQuery originally, but you know with CSS3 this makes it a lot easier and quicker, at least for some basic stuff. So today I'm going to show you what I learned, and this is it. Just a quick sliding, an image slides up and it shows some text below it. There you go. And one thing you can notice is with CSS3, just by default, when you roll off an image, no matter what state it's in, it just goes back to, it finishes, whatever you would want to call it. It stops right where it's at and just stops. So you can roll over it so many times and it's just going to continue and count as one rollover. A little confusing to explain, but if you've done some animation with jQuery, you would know what I'm talking about. There's a little glitch where you roll over it and it'll count all the times you roll over it and just redo it that many times. Anyhow, that's beside the point. Let's go ahead and get started with this. I'm going to just drag in here my blank canvas right here, and it's just a simple HTML. And we're going to start off with the div, making the div boxes first, and then we will stylize it just to make things a little easier. So to start off, I just make a quick div wrapper, div ID, with the ID of montage block. Okay, and then I'm just going to label this for your convenience. Alrighty, and that's just going to be one big wrapper that holds everything. And in this, we're just going to start off with one block. We're not going to do all of them right away. In this one, we're going to make a div with a class, and I'm using class here because this is the part that's going to get repeated a lot. So the class is going to be montage. Oops, I'm sorry. Yeah, I made a mistake. Montage block. Okay, this one's actually going to be called montage wrap. So here we go. Montage wrap wraps everything. Inside is a class called montage block, and this is going to be what wraps each individual image, the block of images. So let me indent that a little bit, just to stay neat and tidy. And then inside of this, we are going to create a span. And the span is going to be our actual image. Now you don't need to do a span for this. You could just throw in your image here and it will just have that whole image, img, blah blah. But I like to keep my HTML clean, and then my CSS would be what changes the image. Just a personal preference. So the span is going to have an ID of block 1. And the reason I'm giving this an ID is because if you have multiple images, the ID is going to end up changing every time. If it's going to stay the same, it's going to all be the same image, then I would change this to a class, because you're not supposed to duplicate IDs, but classes can be duplicated. Alright, so if your mind hasn't been blown out by confusion, let's continue. So anyhow, this is what we have. We have a big wrapper that's wrapping up all our blocks, and each block is going to be different. And then inside of the block is a span, which is going to equal our image that's going to slide up and down. So now we want to add the title and the text that is behind the image that appears once the image slides up. So to do that, we are going to create another class. So div class equals thumb underscore content, and this is going to house all our content. So inside of here, we're going to have an h1, and that's going to be our title, sample title, and then we're going to have a paragraph that says this is some sample title, yay for text. Beautiful. Absolutely wonderful. Alright, so now if I save this and refresh here, you can see what we have. Nothing. Okay, so we have to do some styling. If we come over to here, I just have my inline styles here. You would normally want an external CSS, but I'm just keeping this a little simpler for you guys to see. So in here, let's create, just really quickly create all these IDs. So we're going to have an ID of montage wrap, and then we're going to have a class of montage block, and then montage, oops, I'm sorry, then block 1, and then thumb content. Okay, so in montage wrap, we're just going to give it some basic a width of 820 pixels, and this wrap, it just houses everything. So it's going to be 820 pixels wide, and then a height of 200 pixels. And you can change this to whatever you want. This is just for my own specific stuff. My images are 200 pixels tall, so I just made it that. And a width of 820 is about 4 of these images with 4 or 5 pixel margins spacing them all. So just simple math. It doesn't matter too much. Montage block. Here I'm going to do a width of 200 pixels and a height of 200 pixels. Again, my image is 200 by 200, so that's where I'm getting these measurements from. And I want all of these blocks to float to the left. And I want to say display block, because it's a block. Get it? And now what we want to do is overflow hidden. And what that's going to do is keep the image hidden when it scrolls up. When it scrolls up out of that block, we don't want it to still be shown above the block. We want it to disappear. Kind of like a picture frame. The picture gets hidden at the top of the frame rather than poking out of the top. And then we also want to change this position to relative, because the images inside of it are going to be positioned absolutely. And for an absolute image to be positioned inside of something, its housing has to be relative. Confusing, but it makes sense. Alrighty, so now that we have that, let's see if we can refresh this. Nothing really changes. Alright, so let's go to block number 1. And here, I'm going to give it a width of 200 pixels. A little redundant, but this is for the image. Height of 200 pixels. And then, as I said, position absolute. This is so we can move it up and down. And then we wanted to say display block for this one as well. Alrighty. So for this block 1, I'm going to actually, yeah, we can do that. I'm going to keep this, and I'm going to go background URL. And I'm just going to load the image. So what it is called pixel4life_thumb.png. Alright, so let me refresh this to show you what we got. Right now we have this image, and that is this right here. Let me inspect elements. So we have this wrapper that's 820 pixels wide. Inside of it is a little block, and inside the block is an image. Simple enough. And then the content is right behind it. Okay? So now that we have that, we can actually do some animations. Let's go to block 1 here, and we're going to do WebKit, and then we're going to go transition, and then transition : top, because we're going to be transitioning the top of it. And 3 seconds, 0.3 seconds, ease in and out. Alright. And then what we want to do down here, so if I save this and refresh this, it does absolutely nothing. We need to tell it what triggers this animation. So we want a hover state. So down here we're going to specify that. We're going to say .montage, oops, dash block, hover. So when we hover over montage block, which is the entire wrapper, we want the ID of block 1 to do the following. And that is change the top position to -150 pixels. So if I save that, refresh this, when I roll over it, you see it's going to roll up 150 pixels. Simple as that. Just to reveal this text in the background. Nice. And you could just stop right there. That's how simple it is. All you need is one line of code that says what you want to happen. You want it to transition the top, which is this right here, in 0.3 seconds. And then you tell it when you want it to trigger. Image hover, block 1, and how much to go up. Simple. I was just amazed at how easy that is. In jQuery, that would have been a lot of programming. So now that we have the basic thing, we can do some stylization and make it look pretty. So over here, I'm going to do margin 0, 4 pixels, 0, 0. And then we're going to do background white. And then border 1 pixel solid 666. Just a dark gray. And if I refresh that, you can see what it did. Just made a quick border. So you can kind of see that it's inside of something. So let me show you why we did this overflow hidden. If I erase that, save it, and I do this, you can kind of see that the image goes outside of that frame. What we want with that hidden is anything that overflows out of this box is hidden. Simple enough. So I add it back, refresh, you can see it's hidden. Nice and clean. Okay, so let me do a little bit of stuff for this content. And for thumb content, I'm going to do padding of 70 pixels from the top, and then 15 pixels on the right side, 0 on the bottom, 15 pixels on the left. And then color, I'm going to do 777. Let me refresh this, and you can see, boom, gorgeous. Alright, so now we can do dot thumb underscore content h1. Let me just copy this, because we're going to need it for the paragraph text as well. Yeah. So H1, and then we're going to change this to P. Simple as that. So in here, I want to do a margin of 0 top, right, and then bottom is going to be 5 pixels, and left 0. We're going to change the color to a dark gray, 444. Well, we could probably keep it consistent and do 666. And then font size is going to be 14 pixels. And the paragraph text is going to be no change at all, actually, because we already specified it right here. Alright, so we're going to refresh this, and there we go. Very nice and clean, very simple. Alright, so let's say you want a couple more boxes. Let me just erase this, it's bothering me. Alright, so let's say you want a couple more boxes. This is why we have this inside of a montage wrapper, and then each individual block. So let me just do a comment here that says block end. So I'm going to copy this, paste it, so then there's 4 of them. Alright, save that, refresh, and there you go. My spacing is a little wrong, but let's let's make that 840 and see what happens. Alright, so boom, boom, just as simple as that. And then if you want to edit it, you just come over here, change this to whatever, save it, refresh, whatever, boom. Awesome, very cool. Alright, that's going to finish off this tutorial. Hopefully you learned something new, and this gets you started with CSS3. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.